truth, whose form is Sat Chit Anand, ever-existing, all-knowing, and all bliss. O Vishnu, it is only by the grace of thy name that we are capable of offering hymns to thee, so we should adore and pray to thy name alone." Unquote. In 1893, in the midst of his expansive preaching activity, the Thakur also had the good fortune of getting the association of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, who, accompanied by many Vaishnavas, came to Sri Mayapur on pilgrimage and visited the Thakur at Godram. In mid-1893, the Thakur was requested to resume his duties by Sir Henry Cotton, Chief Secretary of the Government of Bengal, because Bhaktivinoda had been given a two-month sabbatical, and he used that time. He started the Nam Hatha preaching program, going from village to village. And it says it started with a few people, then it was 1,000, and in the end it was like 4,000 people coming to them. And it described before about the Nam Hatha, the different. Bhaktivinoda said he was taking the position of the sweeper of the marketplace of the holy name, and there were various different posts, different people, different jobs they had to do, like that. Srila Bhaktivinoda wanted to resume his service in Krishna Nagar, because it's of course near to Godram and Mayapur, but he was asked to go to Sasaram, where there were riots between Hindus and Muslims. He recalls, quote, "There was a serious dispute between the Hindus and Muslims over cow slaughter. There had been very good relations between the Hindus and Muslims for many a year, but because of cow slaughter their good relations had ended. The feelings of hostility were mutual and there was constant fighting between them. In the town of Sasaram there were many alleys and lanes, and Muslims and Hindus lived cheek by jowl. Because of this there was plenty of opportunity for disputes. Fighting would develop daily. A certain Vaishnav sannyasi bought a small piece of land facing my court office, and he endeavoured to build a temple there. The Muslims insisted that the temple could not be built. The sannyasi spoke to me about the matter, and I spoke to the Muslim Sarestadara so as to know the thoughts of the local Muslims on this matter. But the sannyasi did not wait for the result of the talks, and he just began to build a temple. That particular day I was in Nasari Ganga. Muslims went to the plot of land with sticks and swords to fight. The leaders among the Muslims sent a telegram to the government, and the commissioner was informed that the sannyasi was building a temple over a Muslim tomb, and that it was being done with the connivance of Hindu officers. Many letters were exchanged concerning this matter. Being a Hindu officer, it was difficult for me to stay in Sasaram and remain impartial. I made many attempts to get away from Sasaram. My superior officers gave much help to me, and the government secretaries informed me that there would be a transfer elsewhere at a suitable time." Unquote. In the meantime, the Thakur was requested to go to Koyat as a matter of urgency. Quote, "I came to know that in Koyat there was an excellent bull that belonged to a Brahmin. The Brahmin went to Purushottam, Puri, but he didn't take the bull. Upon returning, he searched for the bull, and when he couldn't find it, he concluded that the local butchers had killed and eaten it. The Brahmin challenged the Muslim butchers, and they replied, 'What of your bull? In the future we will kill 5 cows in front of everyone on market day. What will the Hindus be able to do when they see this?' Hearing this utterance, the Brahmin was enraged and informed all the Hindus. He also wrote to the respectable citizens of the town in order to put an end to this cow killing. On the market day, almost 4,000 Hindus from all over the region and beyond came carrying missiles and swords to the house of the butcher, who fled. They made a slight disturbance but didn't see the man and therefore dispersed. By the afternoon the Muslim group had grown, and taking up guns and swords, some of them injured some Hindus. The injured persons had to be sent to hospital. After some delay the police came, but they were not able to do anything. Finally, they saw the Muslims creating a disturbance, but because the fight was not started by the Muslims, but rather was started by the Hindus were considered to be at fault. After carefully questioning witnesses from both sides, I gave 2-year prison sentences to a few Hindu men. Then, after examining the witnesses against the Muslims, I gave 2-year prison sentences to some of them. They appealed to the High Court against my decision in these 2 trials, but my decision was upheld." Unquote. Finally, the Thakur wrote to Sir Henry Cotton, and he received a transfer to Nadia. He comments, "The days of my trouble were over. In the month of October, I came to Kolkata from Sasaram. The Thakur's workload was somewhat reduced, and he again contemplated his retirement longingly. The year was 1894. In Krishnanagar, a grand meeting of the Srinavadip Dham Pracharani Sabha was held, and many scholarly men arrived. After much discussion, it was decided that deities must be established at the Jogapit, birthsite of Lord Gauranga. In October of 1894, at the age of 56, the Thakur decided to retire from government service against the protestations of government authorities and his family. He felt that the greater work of preaching the glories of the holy name was urgent, and that his government service was a hindrance. He retired to Sarabi Kunj in Godramdweep, where he engaged himself fully in preaching, chanting and writing. He revised many of his previous writings, perfecting and refining them. No longer was he distracted by mundane duties. On December 6, 1894, an article appeared in the Amrit Bazar Patrika that describes how just after the Thakur's retirement from government service, he began going from door to door in Calcutta, begging donations for Lord Chaitanya's temple in Mayapur in a spirit of perfect humility. Quote, "Babu Kedarnath Dutt, the distinguished deputy magistrate, who has just retired from the service, is one of the most active members. Indeed, Babu Kedarnath has been deputed by the committee to raise subscription in Calcutta and elsewhere, and is determined to go from house to house, if necessary, and beg a rupee from each Hindu gentleman for the noble purpose. If Babu Kedarnath Dutt, therefore, really sticks to his resolution of going round with a bag in hand, we hope no Hindu gentleman whose house may be honoured by the presence of such a devout bhakta as Babu Kedarnath will send him away without contributing his mite, however humble it may be, to the Gaur Vishnu Priya Temple Fund." Unquote. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur thus honoured the houses of many persons, even persons who had formerly been opposed to him for one reason or another. His efforts served as inspiration for many other workers, and before long sufficient funds had been taken up to erect a temple in Mayapur. While the foundation of the temple was being dug, a deity of Adhokshaja Vishnu was found. By referring to the Gaudiya Vaishnav scriptures, the Thakur determined that this deity was the very deity worshipped by and owned by Sri Jagannath Mishra, the father of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This discovery confirmed the authenticity of the site from yet another point of view, archaeological. On March 21st, 1895, on Gaura Purnima, the anniversary of Sri Gauranga's birth, an enormous installation ceremony and Sankirtan festival was held. Thousands of visitors attended, and the festival was compared by many participants to the famous Ketari festival of Narottam Das Thakur, which he had organized 450 years earlier to unite all the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Saying we could have another one of those. But we need someone like Narottam Thakur to kind of lead the show, you know. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur recalls, quote, "There was an enormous Sri Murti installation festival and uncountable participants attended. There was Manohara Sari Kirtan and Nama Sankirtan, all with great bliss. Envy had previously arisen from the inhabitants of present-day Navadip over the finding of old Navadip. There had been some talk and a storm of abusive words for the worshippers of Gauranga. But for those who have offered their lives to the lotus feet of Gauranga, why would they be intimidated by the talk of wicked people? Not listening to the talk of the worldly minded and envious, the devotees arranged to build a temple and worship the Lord." Unquote. The Thakur installed deities of Lord Chaitanya and his consort Srimati Vishnupriya, and everything was conducted with great pomp. The birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was officially commemorated, and its true identity and importance was dramatically revealed to thousands of people. Thousands of Vaishnavas from all parts of India were present and took part in the ecstatic chanting, dancing and feasting. Most of the learned Pandits of Navadvip, after hearing the exhaustive evidence uncovered by the Thakur, finally admitted that this was indeed the place of Lord Chaitanya's appearance. Yeah, most of them, but some of them still didn't. That's why I say it's partly hagiographical, because it says thousands of Vaishnavas from all parts of India were present. Well, they may have come from other parts of India. I don't know. It's slightly, what's the word? Not exaggeration, there's a word. Hyperbolic, yeah. So after this momentous celebration, I'm sure it's a massive, celebration, of course. The Thakur travelled to Tripura, a mountainous state where Veer Chandra Dev Maharaj, who was devoted to Lord Vishnu, was the king. The Thakur travelled there at the king's invitation in July of 1896, and for 4 days he preached about the glories of the holy name to the people there. On the first day he spoke about the eternal principles of devotion and the spiritual form of the holy name of Krishna. His lecture was filled with deep philosophical analysis and many quotations from the Vedic literature, unknown even to the many pundits and learned gentlemen in attendance. Upon hearing his talk, they became stunned at the erudition and deep realizations of this liberated Paramahansa. Many were able to grasp for the first time the transcendent nature of pure devotional service and the chanting of the holy names. For the next 2 days, the Thakur enlivened both the royal family and the general public by continuously speaking on Lord Chaitanya's sublime pastimes. Returning from Tripura to his work with the Namhatta in Godundweep, the Thakur toured all of the villages in the vicinity of Kolkata and Kumarahatta, chanting the holy name and distributing the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. From the time of his retirement in 1894 until 1896, there was another incredible outpouring of preaching, writing and publication work. In 1894 he published Vedaka Diditi, a Sanskrit commentary on Sri Ishopanishad, along with a commentary by Baladev Vidyabhushan and other commentaries as well. He also published Tattva Muktavali, or Mayavad Shatadushani, a book by Madhvacharya refuting the philosophy of Shankaracharya with a prose Bengali translation. In 1895, the Thakur was in full stride with the publication of his Amrit Prabha Bhasya, his commentary on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, Hari Bhakti Kalpa Latika, a Sanskrit work about pure devotion by an unknown author, and edited by the Thakur, Sodasa Granth, 16 small essays on Vaishnavism by Sri Vallabhacharya, Sri Gauranga Stava Kalpataru, a 12-verse poem in Sanskrit from Raghunath Das Goswami's Stavavali, Mana Shantoshani, a Bengali translation of a Sanskrit work by Sri Pradumna Mishra, Mukunda Malastotram by King Kula Shekhar, who's one of the 12 Alvas of South India, Sri Lakshmi Charit by Gunaraj Khan, the author of Sri Krishna Vijay, 4 Nam Stotras from the Narada Pancharatra, and Sriman Mahaprabhu Ashtakalya Leela Smaran Mangal Stotram, an 11-verse Sanskrit poem on the eightfold daily pastimes of Lord Chaitanya by an unknown author. 1896 was a momentous year in which Bhaktivinoda Thakur reached out to the West with his Sri Gauranga Leela Smaran Stotram, a book containing 104 Sanskrit verses and a condensed description of the pastimes and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as found in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. The book began with a 47-page introduction in English prose entitled Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, His Life and Precepts. This introduction summarizes the contents of the book's Sanskrit verses and is one of the most concisely worded, sublime descriptions of Lord Chaitanya's life and teachings. It is condensed nectar. Accompanying the Sanskrit verses was a Sanskrit commentary entitled Vikashani Tika by the renowned Pandit of Navadip, Mahopadhyay Sitikanta Vachaspati. The above-mentioned work was sent to various universities and intellectuals in different parts of the world, and it was in part a reply to the American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson, who had expressed his regret in not being able to read the Sanskrit of the Thakur's Sri Krishna Samhita. Here was something the Westerners could easily read and profit from, and the book found its way into many of the major educational institutions in both hemispheres. As a matter of fact, it was discovered many years later by one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples in McGill University in Montreal. 1896 was also the year of Srila Prabhupada's birth, which he noted in his dedication to the Thakur of his book Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, quote, dedicated to the sacred service of Srila Satchit Anand Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who initiated the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in the Western world, McGill University, Canada, in 1896, the year of my birth, unquote. By some spiritual coincidence, the two events occurred in the same year, and Srila Prabhupada did not discount but rather noted the spiritual significance. Furthermore, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had predicted the day that Westerners would also embrace the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. In one of his articles written for Sajjana Toshini and published in 1885, he had not only predicted it, but prayed for it and invoked it in the same mood as Advaita Acharya, praying for Lord Chaitanya's descent. Quote, Lord Chaitanya did not invent himself to liberate only a few men of India. Rather, his main objective was to emancipate all living entities of all countries throughout the entire universe and preach the eternal religion. Lord Chaitanya says in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, in every town, country and village, my name will be sung. I have to go now, so you want to carry on? You can, it's on there. Jai.
Carry on.
Maharaj needs to have some prasada. Did you bring your containers?
Yeah, because I want to send a little prasad.
Okay.
And get it.
You go on that
Engagement, yeah.
Okay, alright. None of these.
I'll take them now. Yeah.
He decided to just have some prasad.
Do you want to keep reading as you like?
I don't know, what should we do? Should I keep reading?
Yeah, until 8 o'clock.
Until 8, okay. It's Tridandi.
No, he said that you have to go, you have to take prasad.
Okay. Okay, continuing from where Maharaj left off. Lord Chaitanya did not advent himself to liberate only a few men of India. Rather, his main objective was to emancipate all living entities of all countries throughout the entire universe and preach the eternal religion. Lord Chaitanya says in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, "In every town and village, my name will be sung." There is no doubt that this unquestionable order will come to pass. Very soon, the unparalleled path of Harinam Sankirtan will be propagated all over the world. Already we are seeing the symptoms. Oh, for that day when the fortunate English, French, Russian, German and American people will take up banners, mridangas, karatals, and raise kirtan through their streets and towns. When will that day come? Oh, for the day when the fair-skinned men from their side will raise up the chanting of Jai Sachinandan Ki Jai, and join with the Bengali devotees. When will that day be? On such a day, they will say, "Our dear brothers, we have taken shelter of the ocean of Lord Chaitanya's love. Kindly embrace us." When will that day come? That day will witness the holy transcendental ecstasy of the Vaishnav Dharma to be the only Dharma, and all the sects and religions will flow like rivers into the ocean of Vaishnav Dharma. When will that day come? End quote. And then he penned another amazing prediction, which can be applied to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but also, most certainly, to Srila Prabhupada. Quote, "A personality will soon appear to preach the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and move unrestrictedly over the whole world with his message." Unquote. Srila Prabhupada naturally credited Srila Saraswati Thakur with this feat, as in his purports to the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he states, "In the same order as Kardama Muni about 100 years ago, Thakur Bhaktivinoda also wanted In the same order as Kardama Muni, about 100 years ago, Thakur Bhaktivinoda also wanted to beget a child who could preach the philosophy and teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the fullest extent. By his prayers to the Lord, he had as his child Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, who at the present moment is preaching the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya throughout the entire world through his bona fide disciples." From Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 22, Text 19. On the other hand, the personality who actually repeatedly circled the globe, who moved unrestrictedly over the whole world, was undoubtedly Srila Prabhupada. Both understandings are correct. It was Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. For Prabhupada has stated that he has never separated from the order of his spiritual master for a moment. In the form of his instruction, Srila Saraswati Thakur continued to preach. And most certainly that great figure, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whose prayers brought such a wealth of association to the impoverished world in the form of his son and in the form of his son's foremost disciple, also accompanied them in his shiksha form, thus nourishing the effort at every step. During a videotaped conversation with Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles, Vishnujan Swami remarked, "Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said he was leaving this world with his work unfinished." And Srila Prabhupada replied, "So let us finish it. We are descendants of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It was kept unfinished so that we should get the chance to finish it. That's his mercy. He could have finished completely, he could have finished immediately. He's a Vaishnav, he's all-powerful." And, end quote. And thus there remains a great spiritual legacy of preaching and service for all those who contact the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the disciplic succession of these spiritual titans. In Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his life and precepts, the Thakur first summarizes the life of the Lord, and then he discusses his precepts. That portion begins as follows. Chaitanya teaches us, in the first place, that the rational attributes of men are not capable of approaching the divine sphere of spirit. Yukti, as he styles reason, is quite incompetent in such a matter. Ruchi, as he styles the religious sentiment in man, even in a very small quantity, has the power to comprehend it. It is inspiration which can alone give light to spiritual matters. Inspirations coming down from heaven through purified and blessed souls have exhibited themselves in the form of the Vedas. The Vedas, together with their explanatory notes, the Puranas, are therefore the only evidence in matters of spirit and are eternal in nature. Vedic truths should therefore be accepted as the only truth in higher nature, in higher matter. Reason, while sincerely helping the inspired truth, may be accepted as auxiliary evidence. The Vedas teach us, according to Chaitanya, 9 principal doctrines. That is, number 1, Hari, the Almighty, is one without a second. Number 2, He is always vested with infinite power. 3, He is the ocean of rasa. 4, His soul is vibhinangsha, or separated part. The soul, as in the jiva soul. 5, certain souls are engrossed by prakriti, or his illusory energy. 6, certain souls are released from the grasp of prakriti. 7, all spiritual and material phenomena are Vedavad Prakash of Hari, the Almighty. 8, Bhakti is the only means of attaining the final object of spiritual existence. And 9, Prem in Krishna is alone the final object of spiritual existence. With these 9 points introduced, the Thakur elaborates on each point, bearing in mind the various cultural and philosophical prejudices of a Western audience. For example, regarding the realization of God as Krishna, who exhibits his Vrindavan Leela as the first point to be understood, the Thakur naturally realizes the difficulty this will create for the uninitiated. Therefore he writes, the material senses of man cannot approach him. It is the spirit in man which can see him direct and commune with him. The soul, fettered in matter, has from its own degradation lost its right to see Krishna and his spiritual Leela in the spiritual world. But Krishna, out of his own supreme power and prerogative, may appear with all his Vrindavan Leela for the eyes of all men. The rational man can hardly conceive and believe Krishna and his Leela. As his spiritual essence improves, he sees him and loves him with all his heart. In our small compass, we can hardly treat this subject fully and exhaustively. We, therefore, leave this point to our readers with these words. Give up the shackles of matter slowly. Cultivate your spirit inwards. Give up prejudices which you have acquired from the so-called rational thinkers who deny the existence of spirit. Be humble in yourself and learn to respect those who work towards spiritual attainments. Do these with your heart, mind, and strength in the company of spiritual people alone, and you will see Krishna in no time. Krishna is not an imaginary being, nor do you have a right to think that he is a material phenomenon fancied to be the supreme being by fools. Krishna is not understood by the process of distinguishing the subjective from the objective, nor he is to be accepted as an imposition on the people set up by designing men. Krishna is eternal, spiritually true, reflected on the human soul when relieved of all pressure of gross matter, and is the subject of love which proceeds from the soul. Accept him as such, and you will see him in your soul's eye. Words fail to describe that transcendental being. The highest, best, and most spiritual ideal of the divinity is in Krishna. To bring arguments against him is simply to deceive oneself and deprive himself of the blessings that God has kept in store for man. Hence, all descriptions of his name, person, attributes, and Leela should be accepted spiritually, giving up the material portion which words must necessarily convey. The authority, conviction, and straightforwardness with which the Thakur speaks is recognizably the hallmark of the parampara of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When speaking of almost inconceivably sublime and rarefied spiritual knowledge and experience, preachers like the Thakur, Srila Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada present these topics in a matter-of-fact way, kicking out rationalistic preconceptions and prejudices, and stating what they know beyond doubt to be true. It is clearly desirable to surrender to a spiritual master who has actually seen the truth and can speak of the Absolute with such conclusive authority and conviction. The Thakur, in addressing the third point, i.e. that Lord Hari is the ocean of rasa, urges the reader not to think that the activities of Krishna in the spiritual world have been imagined in the light of our experience of the activities of ordinary persons in the material world. He writes, "The Chit Jagat, spiritual universe, is the model of the Mayak Jagat, material universe, but they are not identical. We must guard ourselves against the idea that man has imagined Chit Jagat from an experience of the Mayak Jagat. This idea is pantheistic, and it may also be styled atheistic. Reason, not spiritualized, has a tendency to create such a doubt, but one who has a wish to enjoy spiritual love must give it up as misleading. The eternal rasa of Krishna exists spiritually in Chit Jagat. To us who are in the netherworld, there is a screen which intervenes between our eyes and the great spiritual scene of Krishna Leela. When by the grace of Krishna that screen is drawn up, we have the privilege to see it, and again, when it pleases the Almighty to drop the screen, the great Vrindavan Leela disappears. Taste the subject, and your conviction will be the same as mine. Brethren, do not give up such an important subject without due and liberal examination." Next, the Thakur addresses the controversial idea of transmigration in discussing the fourth point, i.e. the soul in his vibhinangsha or separated part. Should we finish there? Should we finish up there? It's going to go on through the 9 parts, I guess, summarizing them.
Yeah, maybe we could finish.
Okay. Shri Thakur Bhakti Vinod Ki Jai.
Which book is that?
It's from a book that was published by an ISKCON devotee back in the late 80s called The Seventh Goswami.
Is this Tridandi Maharaj's selection? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he chose this to read.
He disappeared.
You have to go.
Yeah, he had to go, so that was it. He had to go, he had to go. Let's see. Let's go from here.
Well, we need someone in the line of the camp.
Oh, do we really? Okay. Yeah.